How much do you need to invest if you want to be worth $1 million or more? That's going to be answered on today's video. Now, today, even though you will be seeing this video a few days after I did this video, I answered a question on Quora, which is one of my favorite questions I've answered so far. And it asks a simple question: how much do you need to invest if you want to be worth $1 million? And the way I looked at it, and I put it below on this particular video, is first of all, let's look at different scenarios. So scenario one, which would never ever happen, is that the S&P 500 every single year does 11.1%, which is the average is done since 1950. It's not going to do that every single year because, of course, some periods it's doing much better, some periods it's doing much worse. In that scenario, it takes you much above 20 years to get to $1 million, but then get to 2, 3, 4, 5 million, it's much quicker because of compounding. But what's interesting is when I compared investor one, who would be getting very poor returns in the early parts of, very good returns in the early part of their account, but then weak returns later on. An investor two, who would be the opposite, in other words, they would get quite weak performance, even 0% in the early years of their account, but then their account would be doing very, very well later on. What I found is that the second investor would be able to get to the $1 million mark much quicker than the first investor. You can click on the answer below to see just how many years, but it shaves millions of years off. I'm going to give you a clue, it's more than 10 years. So get this, investor one and investor two, they invest the same amount of money, $1,000 every single month, no lump sums, they're both investing the same amount for the same number of years. However, investor one has to wait much above 10 years to get the same returns as investor two for a specific reason, that when the account is worth less early on, getting higher returns doesn't matter as much as getting high returns later on. Now, that doesn't mean you can predict when markets are going to do badly or when they're going to do well, but a lot of people worry about falling markets or stagnating markets, lost returns, a lost decade and all this kind of rhetoric. But actually, if you're young enough to not care about the returns of markets, actually, if markets are stagnant for 10 years like they were from 2000 until 2010 or from 1965 for about 10 years, that's actually a good thing if you're young enough to be able to wait it out. In an ideal world, you should have lower returns early on and higher returns when your account is actually worth more. And a lot of people actually don't understand this. Most people understand compounded interest, compounded returns, but what a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't understand it even after a couple of years of being in finance when I was starting out, is that ideally you should actually want higher returns later on your accounts once they're doing better and the accounts are actually worth more money.